Once upon a time, in a classroom filled with curious students, Mr. Reynolds, a brilliant American teacher, gathered his beloved students for a special lesson. Today, he was going to tell them about one of the greatest leaders in history, Nelson Mandela. He stood at the front of the room, his voice full of admiration and respect. "Children," he began, "today, I'm going to tell you a story about a man whose courage, determination, and unshakable belief in justice changed the world. His name was Nelson Mandela, and he taught the world what it means to be truly free." The students leaned forward in their chairs, captivated. Nelson Mandela was born in South Africa, a land that was divided by something called apartheid. This was a system where people were treated unfairly simply because of the color of their skin. Black South Africans were denied many rights, and they were treated as less than human by those in power. But Mandela knew in his heart that this was wrong, and he dedicated his life to fighting for equality. Mr. Reynolds paused, watching the wide-eyed faces of his pupil. He didn't start as a politician or a leader. He began as a lawyer, fighting for the rights of his people in the courtroom. But the government saw him as a threat, and they arrested him. He spent 27 years in prison, simply for wanting justice. Can you imagine? 27 years locked away for standing up for what's right. The classroom was silent, but here's the incredible part, Mr. Reynolds continued. When Nelson Mandela was finally released, he didn't seek revenge. He didn't call for anger or hatred. Instead, he called for forgiveness, for reconciliation. He believed that the only way forward for South Africa was if everyone, black and white, came together in peace. His heart was full of love for his country and his people. Even after all the suffering he endured, the students began to understand the magnitude of Mandela's greatness. Mandela became the first black president of South Africa in 1994, and he led the country through a time of healing. He showed the world that forgiveness is stronger than hatred and that peace is more powerful than war. Mr. Reynolds smiled at his students. Nelson Mandela was more than a leader. He was a symbol of hope, a beacon of courage, and an inspiration to everyone who believes in justice and freedom. And even though he's no longer with us, his legacy lives on. We can all learn from his example to stand up for what is right, to never give up, and to always choose love over hate. The students sat quietly, absorbing the story of the great Nelson Mandela. As they left the classroom that day, they knew they had learned something not just about history, but about how to live their own lives with bravery, kindness, and a commitment to making the world a better place.